Tajuddin's help to pass their exams, and he would oblige them by instructing them to just sit in his madrasa. Inevitably, all of the youths who came passed their examinations. Another variant plot was called the court. In Tajuddin's court, those who suffered in business or financially, or who were in trouble with a lawsuit or court case were sent. Inevitably, those troubled businessmen also found relief.
Wow.
This is all under his tree, right?
And then I'll call it a different office.
They go to different sections. It's being, yeah.
Another place near his seat, Tajuddin called his mosque.
Mm-hmm.
The mosque was for those who came to the Kutub for spiritual purposes and were longing for spiritual experiences or even the sight of God. In his mosque, these experiences were bestowed. Toward the north was an open field, which Tajuddin named the parade ground. Here the master would send people to do physical exercises, which had spiritual significance. By exercising or marching back and forth, the master was preparing those people to fight the battle of life, the battle with their egos or lower selves. Inevitably, they too were guided into the right choice or direction. It was as if Baki Sharif became a fairgrounds for a spiritual carnival. Daily this carnival took place. Every kind of disease or mundane problem was treated by the wine dripping from Tajuddin Baba's loving sight or gaze. His Nazir was their remedy, and no one left Baki Sharif empty-handed or empty-hearted. One day, while it was raining heavily, Tajuddin was observed pacing back and forth in the shower, followed back and forth by the large crowd at Baki Sharif. Along the way, he left.
Go ahead.
I know. Along the way, he left the grounds and headed for the road. He happened to spot a dog lying alongside the road, which had been dead for 3 days. Tajuddin approached the carcass and, touching it, said, "Why are you lying here, my friend? Get up and run." The dog immediately came back to life and scurried away.
Wow.
Wow.
It's
All right.
61 seconds.
Wow.
No, that's what it was.
Gotcha.
Okay.
As Tajuddin's spiritual reputation spread, his relatives gradually came to accept him as someone great. One time, Tajuddin's aunt made him tea. He refused to drink it. Pointing to his left, told her, "Take this tea to a fox lying dead in that field." The old woman did as instructed. When she poured a little of the tea down the dead animal's throat, the fox shook, sat up, and ran away. The miracle that caused the great sensation in Nagpur concerned a professional singer named Surji. She was famous for an exquisitely sweet voice and would often entertain Tajuddin. It is said that she became seriously ill and, despite all possible treatment, expired. Hearing the news, the Raja Bhosle informed Tajuddin that Surji had died. Tajuddin became very irritated and angrily said, "You are lying. She is alive. If she were to die, who would come to sing before me? Go and tell her relatives not to disturb her body." The Raja returned to the house where the woman's body was being prepared for cremation and delivered Tajuddin's message. Having faith in the master's words, the relatives postponed the burial ceremony, and as Tajuddin had indicated, the woman opened her eyes the very next morning. "He raises the dead" became the talk of Nagpur for weeks. One day during 1915, an exceptional-looking individual in his early 20s, accompanied by a friend, came to see Tajuddin Baba, who was holding darshan at Baki Sharif. As that handsome youth entered the room, Tajuddin stood up, and their eyes met. No one in the crowd knew the hidden message or inner communication their glances conveyed. Tajuddin then approached the youth, and taking some roses in his hand, waved them like a wand mysteriously over the stranger's head and face. After this, the stranger and his companion bowed to the Kutub and then left. Just before the striking youth had arrived, Tajuddin had lost his temper with the crowd and was angrily abusing all those in his presence. But upon seeing the youth, his mood changed suddenly to a pleasing manner. Tajuddin had gotten up from his seat immediately, limping to the youth. The fiery mood of the Qutub had been altered upon the youth's arrival. It was as if he had brought the master some joyous news. The young man was no stranger to Tajuddin Baba, however. He was the same youth kissed by Babajan, and whom Narayan Maharaj had royally greeted. The young man indeed brought good news to Tajuddin that day, news that he was preparing to accept the spiritual charge from the Taj, assuming the crown of creation. Later this man was always referred to by Tajuddin as the heavenly rose. In return, that young man would always later refer to him as Taj, the crown.
Taj and the rose.
The crown and the heavenly rose.
Around 1920, Tajuddin returned to Raja Bhosale's bungalow, Shaketara, though he would frequently visit Waki Sharif. At this time, he would also roam on the outskirts of Nagpur as the Raja arranged his Tanga excursions according to his wish. Raja Bhosale did everything possible in serving Tajuddin Baba, trying his utmost to always please his master to the end. Tajuddin enjoyed qawwalis, Persian devotional songs to God. On one occasion at the Raja's palace, a famous singer from Delhi named Janaki came to Nagpur and wished to sing to the saint. The distinguished lady was brought to the palace, but immediately upon seeing her, Tajuddin shouted, "Take that bitch out of here. Get her out of my sight. She thinks she can charm me like other worldly people with the sweetness of her voice. Get her out."
No, different one. This is the one from Delhi.
He used the word bitch.
Yes, right here. Take that, and it's in italics. The woman was shocked, and the Raja had her promptly removed. Tajuddin was aflame. He ordered his Tanga to be brought and left for the riverside. It was raining heavily, and the ground had turned to mud. Oblivious to the muddy conditions, Tajuddin alighted and walked to the river's edge. There he sat contentedly by the flowing water as it rained. Tajuddin's voice then spoke softly to his disciples. "Go and tell that singer from Delhi that if she is willing, she can come and sing to me here." Janaki was informed accordingly, and she unhesitatingly complied, grateful at this unexpected opportunity. She had despaired, was lost. She was taken in a Tanga to the river, where in spite of her expensive silk sari dress, she waded through the mud and sat down near the Qutub. In the mud she sang to Tajuddin for almost 3 hours in the splendor of the moonlight. Tajuddin then blessed her and sent her away.
Wow.
See, I could just see that.
Well,
Bao paints us such a picture.
yes,
As
he
I was
does.
writing, you could see her like waiting in,
Yeah.
and she's like totally
Under the
beside herself. In
moonlight.
other words, nothing matters anymore in the world.
All of
Nothing
it, you
matters.
can, everything that we're reading in here, we can see. I can see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the footnote here says, the Qawwali singer Janaki, after recovering from Tajuddin Baba's abuse, knew that the master, by going to the riverside and testing whether or not she would go there, was letting her understand that it was he who was honoring her by allowing her to sing in his presence.
Oh my.
Because I mean, that's why, you know what I mean?
Yes.
Oh.
He said she thinks she can charm me like otherworldly people with the sweetness of her voice. You know, get her out. So it's like she understood. You know, he's doing me a favor. I'm not doing him a
Right.
favor.
I see. So she was a good person.
Well, he got the message. Tajuddin lived his final days at the Raja's Red House. It's almost done. Shall I just finish?
Oh yeah, please.
Once he had specified his burial place to be at another end of Nagpur. He had selected a particular spot where he himself had once picked up the earth and smelled it, remarking, "This soil of Hazrat, the Great One, is sweet. If a house is built here for me, I will remain in it." Tajuddin Baba dropped his body on August 17, 1925, while staying at the Raja's Red House. He gazed out upon our mad world for the last time and closed his eyes forever on this material sphere. The madness from his wine through Nagpur into frenzy. Wine had poured through the streets, the asylum, and the Raja's palace in Nagpur for nearly 45 years. The news of his death spread fast throughout the district, and his devotees felt as if their hearts had been torn out when he closed his eyes forever. The whole city mourned the loss of their beloved, their most holy tavern keeper, where he had poured wine tears, now flooded. 30,000 to 40,000 people of all religions, Muslim, Hindu, Sikh, Zoroastrian, Christian, marched in a huge funeral procession from one end of the city to the other. Tears of love flowed from their eyes, and every heart was weighed down with grief, repentance, and gratitude. Tajuddin Baba's tomb is now holy ground to the Mohammedans. Tajuddin was buried according to the Islamic custom in that particular spot which he himself had selected. This area was later renamed Tajjudin in his honor.
Oh,
Wow.
my.
Is in
Has
Nagpur.
been inhabited by Tajuddin. That place, the name is, that's been inhabited by
Oh,
Tajuddin.
Wow.
Inhabited by.
Inhabited by Tajuddin.
Let's see what it says.
Isn't Nagpur where
Where is that
Baba did a
place?
lot of the mustard? Wasn't Nagpur like this period here?
Well,
Isn't
Nagpur is pretty close
And I
to,
go sometimes that place too.
to everything.
isn't this Nagpur
Tajuddin Baba.
this period?
I think so.
That's the period I love. That's the period I have all my pictures of Baba in the house.
Well, it's mighty early. No, Baba, I think, was there in the 30s. Yeah.
That was the 30s.
I think so.
Isn't that funny?
What is the footnote?
It says,
He did a lot of them.
Yeah. That's the mustard. A lot of he went there. The ashram, because there's Nadine Tolstoy. There's that picture of Nadine and
The Raj's Red House is now named Taj Darbar, the House of Taj. It is the second main shrine in Nagpur dedicated to Tajuddin by the Mohammedans. Tajuddin Baba's tomb, Tajabad, is the main shrine of pilgrims. There's one more sentence here. Tajuddin Baba's body is buried there, but in reality, he is now in deep sleep. This deep sleep is the true awakening, when the heart drinks its own tears, when one becomes conscious of his own eternal infinity. O Tajuddin Baba, you are Hazrat, a great one. We bow to you. Your wine still flows in our hearts. You showered roses and crowned our king. That was beautiful. Huh?
that was.
Oh, my.
I mean, I forgotten so much about him.
Oh,
Yeah.
You know, because all you remember is that he was in a madhouse, but
oh.
he was like the same age as Baba when
Exactly.
he became realized, and so his ministry was really long.
Long.
And he was so generous. I mean, you know what I mean? Upasni was really rough, whereas he was very kind.
Yeah.
You know, and I mean, I mean, in some ways, he's like Baba.
Oh, a
in
lot.
that
Yes.
givingness and that givingness. Sai Baba, ready?
Oh, and I love Syed Baba. Yes, stand up. There's some more.
Oh, Debbie, can you read back some Perrier for me? Oh. I mean, you put a little glass.
Fakir of Allah. Allah is the protector of the poor. There is nothing besides him. The name of Allah is eternal. Allah is all in all. Thus, a bearded man wearing a ragged robe would cry out daily in Shirdi village. He would smoke a chillum pipe of opium in a consecrated mosque while people would stream by to pay their respects to him, and as his blessing to each he would say, "Give me your money. Give me whatever you have in your pocket." They would have to let him have all their money. Often he would not even allow the people to keep enough to pay their train fare back home. Strange was this ragged ascetic who always asked for money, for by the end of the day he had given it all away to the poor and would wander the streets to beg for his food. He would beg only for bakri, the sweet, unleavened millet bread, and lived on that alone. This ascetic beggar was most often referred to as fakir. Once a naked child stood before this fakir who innocently asked the mother, "Daughter, is it a boy or a girl?" Such was this fakir's innocence. He would often appear quite ignorant of such things. Baba did that too. I mean, the naked child would be right then as well. Is it a boy or a girl?
Really?
Yeah.
Huh.
That's what I think Arch said that. just to be on the same level as the
Wow.
This fakir's behavior was not normal, to say the least. Wait. When anyone would beseech him for something, the fakir would reply, "Allah Mali Hai, God is great." This fakir's behavior was not normal, to say the least. It was considered hypocrisy and slanderous for a fakir to extract money from people. However, people did not mind giving their money to this particular fakir who gave it all to the poor. They had faith in him and gave him whatever he asked, and they considered themselves blessed if he asked for something from them.
You know, Jal, did you ever visit Jal in Pune?
Right.
Yeah.
Jal, when we went, I had Joy perfume, very expensive, that Michael had given me. He wanted perfume, our razors, soaps, everything. He wanted, because he would distribute it, but you know, at the same time, and Michael's going, "You're gonna give me the perfume?" I go, it's a bond, it's okay, you know, because you know, well, you don't know what's he doing, you know. Who knows? But and he would distribute it to the poor.
Blessing for you.
Yeah, so I figured, go ahead, take my expensive perfume, it's okay. You know.
Good name too, Joy.
Yeah, Joy.
So Kenny, did you get paid in jelly beans?
How did you know?
Okay. People would hear him say, I only ask those whom the fakir points out. In exchange, I have to give them 10 times what they give me. Fakir he spoke of was none other than great God.
I love him. Just love that picture.
He was living in the mosque and he died in the mosque. Now his tomb is in the mosque too.
Yeah.
Was Muslim mosque.
I went
before.
there. Did you go there?
Of course.
Did you go?
Where's that?
In Shirdi.
Yeah, sure did, Sai Baba.
I have pictures. I took pictures there.
Yeah. There is real presence near the place where the Dooney is.
Beautiful. Yeah.
Ooh, unbelievable.
Just too many people.
Yeah. A lot
Yeah.
of people.
Too many people.
Bazaar.
It's like
Fakir stands along there. Was this fakir a Hindu or a Muslim? People of every religion and caste in India would go to him.
Yeah.
This holy man was especially unique, for he belonged to no caste or religion or ism. This fakir was too poor and too great to belong to anything. Why would people journey hundreds of miles from all over the Indian subcontinent to see him? It was because of his eyes. The eyes of this fakir were said to be light. Some would say, those eyes, his eyes shine with more brilliance than the sun. They are magnetic. His eyes must be made of light. However, one described them, it was those eyes that eventually attracted thousands to him. Upon looking into his eyes, one would bow and worship at his feet. Hidden in this extraordinary fakir was a earshot of the age. That means the head of all the perfect masters, the chief.
Say it again. The name?
Earshot.
Oh.
It's like the leader of all.
Kutub Irshad, no. For us it's good. Kutub Irshad, that means,
Head of all.
yeah. Kutub Irshad,
Yeah, that's in God's speech.
Yeah.
But that's Baba.
That's right.
Leader for
In
anybody.
addition to Baba, I think it's one of the.
No, at that time he was that.
This
Yeah.
fakir was the head of the spiritual hierarchy and the perfect master of his time. He who held the key to all universes in his own hands appeared as a ragged beggar in a small village called Shirdi. In this beggar's hands, the throws of the universes were kept balanced. It may be difficult for a worldly materialist to believe this, but it is a spiritual fact. If people were told this peculiar holy man was completely responsible for conducting or controlling World War I, they would say it was ridiculous. But in the inner realms of spiritual realities, the Ketubs or Sadgurus are the masters of the universe, and nothing ever happens without their divine ordinance. And there's a footnote. Should I look it up, or?
Yeah, it's in the back there.
I don't know what chapter this is.
Just look at the page.
Number. It has the page number. That's how they're listed.
You're almost out, can you?
I know, as long as I do.
I can survive.
Can you? What do I need? I need a page.
Okay. Once, when remarking about Sai Baba, Mayor Baba said, "It was Sai Baba who controlled the whole First World War. There could be no war without the five perfect masters' will and guidance." Mayor Baba used to recall Sai Baba with the utmost affection as grandfather, and described Sai's greatness as perfection personified. The beggar's appearance was most deceiving. He was the mightiest king in heaven or on earth, but he did not care if people saw him merely as a beggar. Now the sun of his divinity has shed its light. He has done his duty. One must do his. To understand him, one must care. He who cares gains because of knowing him. To research the life of any man become God or Sadguru or Ketub is difficult because when he is embodied, when his sun is brightly shining, all eyes are focused on it, on him. It is only after the sun sets that our attention shifts to recording his story. Without becoming a fakir, one can never fathom such a master's life. Whatever he reveals to the world is just a few rays of his light. And so the true story of every perfect one cannot be known in detail. That fakir of whom the world has come to know never even allowed his fellow man to know his family or childhood name. Our age has named him Sai, which means the Lord or the Holy One. Nothing is definitely known about his birth. Some believe that Sai was born into a Brahmin family, and his parents died and then he was raised by a Muslim ascetic. Some believe, however, that he was born in a Mohammedan family, and most biographers agree with this belief. Whatever the circumstances of his birth and childhood, they are lost as facts. One must concern oneself with Sai the master, not the man, in whose eyes all are one. It is said that Sai was born in 1838 in Sailu village in the Jintur district of India. But recent evidence points to his birthplace as being in the Pakri village in the Parbani district. And also it is said that his childhood was spent near Aurangabad in Maharashtra. One known fact, however, is that his parents were very, very poor. After his father's death, when he was still a young child, his mother was forced by circumstances to resort to begging for their maintenance. One might well wonder what sort of drama this was. He who was destined to be the Lord of the universe had to spend his childhood among the destitute, homeless, begging on the streets. What an unfathomable design by God. The man through whom the world's destiny was to be guided was brought up in most pitiable destitution. Our age heard a young boy cry, "Mother, walk slowly. I cannot go faster. I cannot go on." And the mother lifted the boy in her arms with tears in her eyes. "Mother, I am very hungry. When will someone kind give us food?" And his mother in a choking voice told him, "Son, have patience. God is merciful. There is a village not far away where we will find bread." Sensing his mother's plight, the boy said, "Mother, I do not feel hungry anymore. I feel like walking now." He slipped down from her grasp and, though tired and weak, slowly walked behind her. In this manner, for 5 years, mother and son wandered from door to door, from village to village. With his sweet conversation, the boy kept his mother cheerfully distracted. Never again did the boy ask his mother for food or comfort. Blisters painfully tormented the soles of his feet until they toughened like leather as they walked on and on, on and on. The mother did not know where they were going. They begged and moved on to survive. Who would like to read next?
Ready?
Us.
Yes.
Where?
Hurry up, Mark.
No, he finished his term.
He probably should read his own.
Mercy is always hidden in the apparent terribleness of God. Veda's paradoxical mystery, the cruelty of God is in some way His mercy. No one can escape. His compassion, whatever the circumstances, God's nature is mercy, and He is mercy itself. In His eyes, no one is helpless and without hope, but only those who become God fathom this mystery. The mother and son were suffering. One cannot imagine what the 5-year-old boy was about to receive. After knocking on the door in the village of Shalwadi and being turned away empty-handed, the mother and son wandered to the door of the blind man who took them in, but this blind man was a saint. Gopal Rao Des Kumu, whatever it is.
Start again.
Gopal Rao Des Kumu.
Okay.
Anyway, how do you pronounce that?
Are you asking me?
How do you pronounce that?
Deshmukh. I don't know. Deshmukh.
Well, anyway,
Deshmukh, I
this
don't know.
Rao was a famous saint in the area, and he embraced the boy so ardently that it was, after years of separation, two old friends have been reunited again, once again. Indeed, the saint has been waiting for his woman and boy, and with great respect and love prepared a room in his own house for them to live in with him permanently. There was nothing in the blind saint's house, no furniture, no decorations, except a large statue of Venkatesh, Lord Vishnu, which he would worship day and night. The saint's father was named Keshav Pant. Though a poor Hindu, Keshav was very religious and was the root of Gopal, Rao's spirituality. From childhood, inspired by his father, the flame of spirituality burned deeply in his heart. When it became time for Gopal Rao to earn his livelihood, he had failed to find a job in his birthplace of Jam, and so he had moved to Shalwadi. After he had lived in Shalwadi for some years, the town people looked upon him with reverence. Though still a poor man himself, whatever he had, he would share with others more unfortunate and nurse the afflicted. In token of his selfless service, the town officials granted him a piece of land on which to live and grow food. Gopal Rao suffered a severe penance. One day he gazed at a beautiful woman and began having unwelcome, lustful desires. He was so struck by the depravity of his thoughts that he immediately returned to his home. And while standing before the statue of Venkatesh, poked out both of his eyes with an iron spike.
Yeah, the bad.
Wow.
The external light of the world was cut out forever. But this act increased the inner light within him to flame. The light within him became fire, and its fame spread to distant places throughout India. It was said that Lord Venkatesh himself prepared the anti-tray of Gopal Rao. Only then does he saint perform the arti before the Lord in the manner the blind saint was worshipped his idol, Venkatesh, and because of Gopal Rao's presence, Shalwadi returned from a farming village to a sacred place of pilgrimage. In the humble house of this blind saint, Saya was brought up with great affection and loving care, and many wounds of 5 years of begging healed. The saint's love for the boy grew more and more pronounced, while the mother served this blind man with deep respect after he made a home for her and her son, and for this she was always grateful. When the boy was 12 years old, his mother died. With the snapping of his parental connection, the boy and blind saint lived in the same house together for several years. It was during this period that the boy had the spiritual world unveiled to them by the saint, and became Gopal Rao's chief disciple. Seeing this close association with the saint, Brahmin disciples became resentful and envious of the boy, wondering why their master was so fond of his Muslim land. As a result, they tried various ways of harassing the youth, but he could. With a little ant there. As a result, they tried various ways of harassing the youth, but he would tolerate their meanness out of love for Gopal Rao. The situation worsened. Their jealousy made them violent and despicable, and some of them decided to murder the boy. They began plotting how to kill him, but to whom God wishes to protect, no one can touch a hair on his head. Even if the whole world goes against him, he is safe. What jealousy can do, it turned a group of devotees into potential murderers. As a result, on one occasion, Gopal Rao was walking through the jungle forest accompanied by the boy. Some of the devotees secretly followed him. As the saint and boy were resting under the shade of a tall tree, the men suddenly crept towards them and one threw a large stone at the boy's head. But instead of hitting the boy, the stone struck Gopal Rao. Seeing his master suffer because of him, it is said that Syed actually wept tears of blood. He told Gopal Rao, "Master, of all our years together, my staying with you is no good anymore. Let me leave this place." The saint replied, "You cannot leave. But today I have decided to make you my sole heir. One day you will inherit my treasure." The man who tried to kill the boy became ill and suffered much before he died shortly thereafter. The village devotees were surprised at this man's sudden demise and believed that Gopal Rao had punished him for his evil intent. One of the men's relatives went to the saint seeking forgiveness, and the rest of the devotees began praying in hope of receiving the dead man. Hearing the request, Gopal Rao told the relative, "Why do you ask me to bring him back to life? I'm just an ordinary man just like yourself. I have no such power. I cannot do such a thing." And pointing to the boy, Gopal Rao added, "Perhaps this Muslim lad can do it." At the sign from the saint, the boy rose and picked up some dirt from the Gopal Rao's feet, rubbed it on the corpse. After a few minutes, the dead man came back to life and sat up. The village devotees were overwhelmed from this act of divine power. They realized that the boy's relationship with Gopal Rao was unique, and as the chief disciple of the master, the boy was to be honored instead of hated. In celebration of his resurrection, the villagers formed a long procession with the boy and Gopal Rao seated in a palanquin, and while thousands worshipped them both, showering flowers as they were carried through the town. Gopal Rao had been hinting for a few days that very soon he would give up his body. But none of the devotees took his word seriously. One day he gathered all his close ones and told them, "My time has come." The blind Satan allowed his disciples to bathe him. He had prayers read a section of the Bhagavad Gita recited. He called the boy to him and very lovingly gave him his own dhoti, a white cloth worn around the waist to the ankles. This Sai reverently accepted. Gopal Rao imparted some final instructions to his disciples and lying down quietly severed his connection with his physical body. By handing over his rope to the youth, Gopal Rao transferred his spiritual charge with all his responsibilities and burdens to the boy, and Sai thoroughly understood its significance. From the cloth of the master's dory, the young lad had a kafni shirt and turban made, which he always wore. This Muslim lad, whom we call Sai, was then just 16 years old. Soon after Gopal Rao's death, the young men left Shalwadi and sought seclusion in the forest. One day, a man named Chand Patil was passing through the forest and he came upon the young fakir seated under a tree. Without any introduction, the young man asked Chand Patil, "Have you lost 2 horses?" Startled, the man replied, "Yes, but I have been unable to find them." "Go to the nearby stream," said the fakir, "and you will find them there." Chand left and was happy surprised to find them exactly where the young aesthetic had indicated. When Chand returned to thank the fakir, he saw the youth filling his child with tobacco, his chilium with tobacco. Anxious to light this pipe for the fakir, Chand realized that he did not have matches. The young man waved him away and, thrusting a stick in the ground, unearthed a piece of burning charcoal and held it to his pipe. This remarkable feat convinced Chand Patil that the young fakir was somehow great and holy. He requested the holy man to accompany him to the village of Shiridi, where he was journeying to attend his nephew's wedding, and the young fakir agreed to join him. Shiridi was not a big town, and the entire village turned out to welcome the visitors, little knowing what a distinguished guest he had among them. At the wedding procession passed by Kandoba temple, a Hindu priest named Bhagat Mahasapati caught sight of the young fakir and called out for the first time the word, "Ha Sai Ha," "Welcome, Lord, welcome." From that day on, the young fakir of only 16, whose name no one really knows, came to be known as Sai. The young fakir did not remain in Shiridi long. However, he began wandering from place to place in Maharashtra, begging along the way. Finally, he wandered around the hills surrounding the Aurora caves of Aurangabad, where he entered a small cave atop a hill called Kuldabad. At the bottom of this hill is a tomb of Muslim Quatam named Azari Bakash. The Quatum tomb was then a favorite spot for Mohammedan pilgrims in the area for over 700 years. Zari Bakash was the master of the young fakir in the previous lifetime, and inwardly drawn to be near his former master, Sai entered a cave overlooking the tomb. Sai became God-realized during this period and stayed in this cave for several years in a state of Mazubiya, never leaving it for good or for food or water. During each year, the strong, healthy physique of the young fakir turned into a living skeleton. The skeleton, however, was infinite light, as his size, flesh, and bones had been transformed into light. But his emaciated fake fakir had lost his gross consciousness. He now had the body of a mature man, but he was a man with no bodily consciousness. He had became God-realized Mazub or something like that. Mazub.
Yeah.
Sai was fully conscious of himself as God, Arnal Haq, but was completely oblivious of his own human body and the world around him for over 4 years. Sai needed to leave that cave. He needed to regain his gross awareness to be able to fully fulfill his destiny, to wipe away the tears of our age and to bring the ancient one into form. When Sai finally left the cave, he was living skeleton, inwardly drawn by the power of another perfect master. He wandered east to meet the Swami of Akkolat, and by his Hindu Sadguru's grace, Sai regained normal human consciousness in this village of Akkolat in the mountainous range of Ajanta. The fakir had now become Sai, a lord of the universe, a living Buddha. As divine work on earth began, he was then 20 years old.
Okay.
20?
20 years old.
What?
He was 20 then? Yeah.
What was that? The last one?
Yeah, he was then 20 years old.
Ooh.
Did you want to stop there or?
There's some artists over there that I didn't
It was
read.
9. 9.
Was
What
beautiful,
page is
thank
it?
you. Top of that page is where you
Oh,
start.
okay. Sai wandered back to Shirdi in 1858, and there he stayed, making this humble village his permanent headquarters. At first it seemed as if a new fakir had made his residence in Shirdi. He kept aloof from the villagers, spending his nights under a neem tree in all seasons. His bodily needs were minimal. Whatever food or tobacco he wanted, he begged for. The fakir preferred to be alone, and he made this known to anyone who invaded his solitude. Evidently, he disliked the villagers.
I can relate to that.
Wait a minute.
After living for some months aloof under the neem tree, Sai moved into a small tin shed which served as the local mosque in this very poor village. Sai renamed the mosque the Wakamai Masajid. M-A-S-D-I-D, Masajid.
Masajid, yeah. Masajid.
The Mosque of the Mother of Mercy.
Right.
Here 2 men began faithfully serving him. One, the Hindu priest Malsapati, who named him Sai, and another named Tatya Kati.
That's Indian name.
Many of the villagers would sarcastically refer to them as the trio of the Masajid. Those villagers. At that time, Shirdi was a quiet farming village, but some years after Sai settled there, plague swept through the area and scores of persons died. The district officials tried everything to alleviate the epidemic, but nothing helped. Eventually, some people approached Sai, narrating their tales of woe and pleading with him to help before the entire population of Shirdi was wiped out. The fakir was moved by their stories and went to a nearby house, picked up a millstone, then returned to the Mother of Mercy Mosque and started grinding wheat. Collecting the flour, he gave it to a woman with instructions to sprinkle it along the boundaries of the village. The woman willingly did as she was told, and within a short time, to everybody's relief, the epidemic started to subside. Patients recovered, and Shirdi was completely free from the doom of the plague.
Wow.
With bread.
What year was that?
Wandered back in 1858.
Wow.
1858. Invalids and the diseased from the surrounding villages would come to the fakir, who treated them with medicinal herbs. Afterwards, he would sit with these afflicted people, listening to the devotional music they would sing. Each person was attracted to him for one reason: the light in his eyes.
I love that.
The perfect ones are all unique. If there was a physical characteristic that set him above other men, it was his eyes. The eyes of this perfect one were so luminous, with such power and deep penetration in his gaze, that no one could look into them for long. One felt that he was reading one through and through. Nothing could be kept secret from that gaze. Once those eyes beheld one, that look was never forgotten. After seeing his face and eyes, people could only bow to him and worship as their Lord. Sai Baba begged for his food every day. Usually he would beg for only bread at 5 different houses in Shirdi. At each doorstep he would call out, "Mother, give me bakri," or "Mother, give me rati," or roti.
What does that mean?
Oh, roti is the
Bread.
bread
Yeah.
with finished potato, you know. Always they order their roti.
You like it.
Yeah. Roti bread, yeah.
Was it Indian bread?
Yeah.
He continued begging up to his last days in 1918. Sai always ate only 1 or 2 of the breads himself, distributing the rest to the poor. And there's a footnote to that effect. Sai Baba's begging was a work of spiritual mystery. According to Meher Baba, Sai Baba represented the world. The 5 houses from which Sai begged represented the 5 perfect masters who are always living in the world and at whose feet the whole world begs for spiritual and material progress. So that's why you would beg at 5 houses.
That's what I thought. It had something to do with the perfect masters.
You did? Wow, I didn't even register until I read that. I'm so happy. I read the footnote.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, he would do 5 houses, different houses, every day.
Wow.
But it would always be 5.
5. Fascinating.
Sai Baba had several strange personal habits besides being a very heavy smoker.
Uh-oh.
Sorry, Fred. Sai Baba was making every day 5 houses.
Yes.
The 5th number for him was the kind of spiritual number, yeah?
Because of
The 5 perfect masters.
See the footnote. Oh, the footnote again is very key.
Therefore I want
This is very important because it's a key point about the whole
This
reason.
part is very important.
It said that Sai Baba's begging was a work of spiritual mystery. According to Meher Baba, Sai Baba represented the world. Each master had a different role with Baba.
Yeah.
The 5 houses from which Sai Baba begged represented the 5 perfect masters who were always living in the world and at whose feet the whole world begs for spiritual and material progress.
Because in our Quran says 5, that's 5 number 2. In the Quran says 2.
Oh, really, Quran?
Yeah. That was very important for me, yes.
Sai Baba had several strange personal habits. Besides being a very heavy smoker, while begging, he would often stop anywhere along the way, in secluded places or amidst a teeming bazaar, and unabashedly lift his dadi to urinate, and after finishing, he always shook his penis 7 times.
After he was good, it was the way. I understand now.
Folks, I may develop a strange habit.
I know that. Man does
But
that.
you're not perfect yet, Freddy.
Oh, yeah.
Wait till we get to Sahabas, all right?
He would pee on the world.
Yeah.
He'd say,
The 7 was a
Take
spiritual
that.
number.
I don't believe it. Oh, Mom.
He was the world.
How can you write that?
Too funny.
How can Mom write that?
It's clear as conscious.
It's all right.
What happened?
No one would believe this if it wasn't written.
I know.
That's because
so
we have
much-
preconceived ideas of what this stuff is all about.
Yeah.
That's all it is.
You know, that's so true.
People saw this. I mean, people
Oh, yeah.
saw him do that. You know what I'm
Yes.
saying?
Well,
That's what's so
Well-
great. is people
the
saw
point of it
that.
is, I know that there's stories that when he would go to the commode, the lavatory, he would have a procession.
No, wasn't that Narayan? I think
That was Narayan Maharaj.
Oh, that was Narayan. That's right. That was
Yeah.
Narayan.
Yeah.
Narayan.
He did everything very
That's right. They'd have a procession.
opulently.
A golden- oh, that's right. And I think it was a golden
Lendl, yeah.
golden commode
Yes.
or seat or something.
Yeah.
Wow.
They would all attend to him and watch him.
Yeah.
Well,
And the procession to the toilet.
Yeah, his entourage.
Oh, this is unbelievable.
Like a big deal.
Yeah.
Wow. I mean,
God
it's
is
like,
going to take it down.
oh my God. Oh, I gotta read that again. While begging.
No, Brad.
No,
No, really.
All right, all right.
got it.
Okay, we got it.
You read it tonight.
Okay, all right,
Yeah.
all right. Okay, then after that, then he would continue with his begging. Seeing him behave in this uncouth manner, some of the villagers at first took him to be mad, not holy. Sai Baba would also take hours to relieve his bowels. As the number
He's
of
doing it for the world, I understand. He was the world.
as the number of devotees increased, this act of attending to nature's call was transformed into a ceremony of pomp and adoration.
So for him as well, yeah.
The ceremony that became the moving of his bowels, Sai would call Lendi.
That's right.
you would call it what?
Lendi. L-E-N-D-I. Listen to this. Sai Baba's Lendi had to do with his spiritual work in the gross world. Although an outward act of the perfect masters is seemingly enigmatic, 1996. It's a Mihir Baba Center in Los Angeles, and this is Lord Mihir meeting, and it's about the great works of Bao Kalchuri, Lord Mihir. This is volume 1, dated 1894 to 1922, and we're at page 49, which is about Tajuddin Baba, or means crown of the prophet. So, no one could understand him. No one had any idea who he really was. No one knew that Taj was the crown. Several British ladies were chatting, drinking their Friday afternoon tea at the country club, when suddenly they saw a naked Indian man walking across the tennis courts. Outraged by this shocking spectacle, and thinking the fellow must be insane, they summoned the police, who arrested him and had him sentenced to be locked up in a lunatic asylum.
Wow.
This lunatic, however, was quite strange and different. A crowd would gather outside the walls of the asylum awaiting his blessing. A separate entranceway was erected to the asylum just so people could see this lunatic. Why? Was he really mad, or were the people who committed him mad? Why would people seek the blessing of this particular madman? It was the wine. It was the wine he alone had. Although the British considered this Mohammedan mad, they must have been the maniacs, for they did not recognize him. He was an owner of a spiritual wine shop. He was the Taj of India, the crown of Islam. He was Tajuddin Baba, a Ketub, a pivot of the universe, an axis of cosmic forces. This Muslim master opened his wine shop in a mental asylum, and people became intoxicated and divinely mad who flocked to him. If this Mohammedan was not mad, why would such a man have had himself locked up in a madhouse? Ordinary people cannot fathom this mystery. Had he not come for the mad themselves? For those lost in the madness of this world? This Ketub's 16 years in that asylum were a phase of his inner work. And there's a picture here. Tajuddin Baba was photographed very seldom. This, the most famous pose of the Mohammedan perfect master, probably taken at the asylum in Nagpur near the turn of the century. So, you know,
Oh, no, go ahead. You sound wonderful.
yeah, well, the thing is, if you have any comments or
Okay.
or questions, because sometimes you may have an inspiration about something that came up about your own self, or
Being in a madhouse?
Where was that? Where was this in India? Where was he?
Nagpur.
Nagpur.
Nagpur?
Yeah, that's pretty close to Nagar, isn't
We
it?
should have, we should have
Have a map.
Yeah.
We should have a map of India.
We should have a
Yeah,
map of
that'd be
Because,
India.
when we talk.
Well, I'm going to look at Dalton. They're having a sale on maps if they have one there.
Oh.
Oh, great.
This Mohammedan youth was not mad when he was locked up in this asylum. It was the world around him. We were just talking earlier, Mark and I, about the madness of living in this fast-paced city of LA.
So true.
It is the whole world which is mad. Only a man who is one with God is truly sane. Tajuddin Baba was a unique master who lived among the maddest of the mad, and he, the Lord of the mind, made his spiritual headquarters in a mental asylum. His story is extremely piquant.
Piquant.
Piquant, what does
Isn't
that
it?
mean?
Is it? How does it
Piquant,
sound?
yeah, P-I-Q-U-A-N-T.
Right.
What does that mean?
Sort of like astringent in a way, you know. So I was actually what I was thinking about is that Baba's working with the mad and the mass probably comes from him. Do you know?
Mm-hmm. Nagpur and
No, but just the whole idea of the mad and
yeah.
the musts. You know, because usually the musts have never been ever mentioned before by any avatar.
that's true.
And that he would choose to be in an asylum. profound. I mean, I just think it's really profound.
Comes Deborah.
Wow. Indeed.
Don't you think so? I mean,
Yeah, that's definitely.
Jay
Baba.
Deb,
Hi.
nice dress, Deb.
Thank you. Hi.
Hi.
Look at that suit. It's so cute.
Jay Baba.
Hi.
Say Baba.
We got started.
Oh, you guys started?
We just started with
You smell good.
We
Oh,
just
thank
started
you.
with the first page.
How are you, Deb?
Oh, goody. On which
Say-
one,
say
Freddie?
Baba.
Volume one, or-
Tajuddin Baba, yeah.
Oh, cool.
I
Yeah.
mean, we're like in, we've covered like every master except Tajuddin Baba and Syed Baba in the last 3 weeks. So we're on Tajuddin Baba. We're at his point where he was put into an insane asylum as a young boy because he would walk naked across the grass, and these British ladies saw him and said, "Who was that?" And so the police arrested him. But little did they know they were arresting a God realized being.
I know, huh?
Oops.
But it goes here. Tajuddin Baba was a unique master who lived among the maddest of the mad, and he, the Lord of the Mind, made his spiritual headquarters in a mental asylum. His story is extremely piquant, which means piquant, P-I-Q-U-A-N-T.
Yeah.
Well, we'll research.
You know what it is? Yeah.
It's sort of.
It sounds like it's special.
Yeah.
Piquant. Piquant? That's how you say it?
Yeah, P-I-Q-U. On the morning of January 17th, 1861.
Kennedy.
Oh, hi,
Hey,
Kennedy.
Jay Baba Kennedy.
Yeah, Baba
Is
Kennedy.
this supposed to start at 7:30?
How are you? Nice to see you. I know.
It's sort of
long
casual
time.
because we discuss
You
each
too.
page.
Kennedy must have been
Hi,
paid. He has
Kennedy.
jelly babies.
Oh,
Yeah,
thank
jelly
you.
babies.
I didn't hear that.
Oh, it's a love message.
Great, Kennedy.
No, it's not either.
I said he must have been paid because he got jelly beans.
You all right?
All right, good to see you.
Yes, I'm good to be seen. Shut up. Don't bother me. I swear, you want one?
Baba. Phil Baba.
I
I
mean,
knew you
on my
would.
way driving here, Freddie, my heart chakra was like someone was stabbing me with a knife, and I was crying.
Oh,
I-
that's
Really?
sweet. That's
Isn't
great.
that?
That's
It's like
What are the white ones?
Baba opening.
They don't make the white ones.
Crazy.
Nobody
hurts.
likes them.
Wow.
What are these?
You know what, like
Oh,
really aches, like
I'm
you
lying.
just feel like you're gonna throw up.
Wow, really?
You
Yeah.
know you would find it too.
Wow.
But we've been feeling,
Don't get
like
these
I've
are addictive.
been wanting to come to
I
the
didn't know
Lord
it was going to
May
get to
here,
the bake
and
today,
then
so.
we've been feeling
You
Bao,
have to put
you
that
know,
over.
all this time that Bao's usually here, and he's not here.
Like we're so used to him being here right now.
Yeah, and especially with Lord Mayor
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
being
That's,
Bao's words or
Yeah.
you know his interpretation. It's just wonderful. The way he writes. I mean, you know, you catch his fire.
Yes, I know you really can.
On the morning of January 17th, 1861, in the town of Kamptee, outside of Nagpur in central India, the anxious family of a Morambi received the joyful news that she had given birth to a son at 5:15. But curiously enough, the baby did not cry when removed from the womb.
Wow.
Was the baby born dead? Someone wondered. Oh, do not dare think that, others countered. This is Morambi's firstborn. The baby boy remained lifeless for some hours.
Wow. This is Tajuddin
Yeah,
Baba. Wow.
he was born January 17, 1861 at 5:15.
So he was also born in around.
Baba was born about that same time,
Yeah.
remember?
I
Yeah,
thought that's what
yeah.
you were talking about.
No, this was Tajuddin
Tajuddin
Baba.
Baba.
Tajuddin
look
Baba.
at how long he took to come into the body, man.
And it says,
How long? How long was
the
it? Several
boy
hours?
says the baby boy remained lifeless for some hours.
Wow.
Finally, legend has it that the family decided the baby's temple and forehead should be branded with a hot iron.
Oh no!
Wow.
That must be a misprint, Fred.
No,
No.
the hot. Well,
cruel
they
and
probably
unusual
figured
The shock.
the shock would
To
open.
shut.
The hot
Oh,
iron would
sure
either.
did, too.
Here, listen. The reasoning is the hot iron would either make the baby open his eyes and cry, or else he was indeed dead.
Dead. Wow.
An elder of the family was chosen to do it. Can you imagine being that
Oh
person?
God.
Well, even then waiting though 3 or 4 hours
I know.
before saying it's over.
Well, I guarantee you, in our present scientific society, they would say the child has no
Oh,
chance.
no doubt.
Yeah.
No, but with the
Survive.
technology,
Yeah,
though.
Absolutely.
With the technology.
Well, they
they
did put
can
him on
see
a machine. What do you call it?
Right.
To keep the
Incubator,
brain.
yeah.
Yeah.
No, well, what do they do for people that are brain dead?
Respirator. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I see you.
The iron rod burned the baby's flesh, and he cried loudly.
Wow.
What a rude awakening.
Oh my God.
God.
Then he had to work with the mat.
Talk about first impressions.
Wow.
No wonder he walked around mad.
Exactly.
But that was his last trip, though. That was his last birth.
That's right.
You know, so.
But what a way to come in. I mean, you think
Is this your last?
you think you get a little better send off.
No, it's not. You're coming back with my girlfriend next.
He remained still,
Taping it.
but as the tears
Oh, I'm
flowed,
sorry.
he looked around as if examining those surrounding him. Here's this little infant is crying, and then he looks around.
It's like,
Wow.
Finally, the baby moved, to the delight of the family. The boy was named Tajuddin Mohammed Badruddin. Literally, Tajuddin means one who wears a crown. In this instance, the crown of the Prophet Muhammad. His father, Syed Mohammed Badruddin, was a soldier, a battalion commander in the British Army. Just before the birth of his son, he was transferred to Kamptee from Madras. Syed was proud to have a son and thanked the all-merciful Allah that his boy had lived.
So he was born a Muslim.
Yeah.
So there's two Muslim masters then.
2 Muslim and 2
Hazrat
Hindu.
Papa John.
And then Baba was Zoroastrian.
Yeah, Baba Zoroastrian, and we had Sai Baba, who was
Hindu.
Hindu.
Sai Baba was Hindi.
But actually, he has
No, he was
both.
Muslim.
He has both.
He was Muslim. That's right. He was
So
both.
so wait, you have
He was both.
you
Yes,
have actually this. You have 2 Hindi, 2 Muslim, and then Sai
One is
Baba
both.
50-50.
Yes.
Wow.
Actually, he is more Hindu now than Muslim. But you went to this.
Yeah.
tomb.
You're right. It was both.
It's both. Yeah,
Yeah.
they have separate entrances and
Yeah.
One
separate.
for the Hindus, one for
One for the Muslims.
It's really lavish now, and he always loved. We'll read about that later.
Well,
Yeah, that's where you get your wish granted.
that'll be our next chapter on Sai Baba. Tragedy, however, soon befell the Badruddin household when Tajjuddin was just a year old. His father died. Mararambi did her best to raise a son who would have made Syed proud. The boy went to a fine school at the age of 6 and was considered an above-average student. But tragedy again befell. When he was 9 years old, Tajuddin's mother died.
Wow.
So he's an orphan at 9. The burden of raising the boy fell on the shoulders of his maternal grandmother.
Wow.
Unique spiritual qualities were detected in Tajuddin even at a very early age. The boy continued with his schooling and learning Arabic, Persian, and Urdu, as well as English.
Wow.
He was also an avid reader. Tajuddin rapidly advanced in higher education until he was 18 years old, when a wonderful event occurred that changed his life.
He was 18?
18.
Okay.
In Nagpur, there was a renowned saint named Hazrat Abdullah Shah, who was highly revered by the Mohammedan community. One day, this saint visited Tajuddin's school and, observing the young man, remarked, "Why should this boy be in school? What is the need for him to study? What is left for him to learn?
Wow.
The youth possesses," what's it, G-N-O-S-I-S?
Gnosis.
The youth possesses gnosis, divine knowledge. The saint approached Tajuddin and their eyes met. Taking a biscuit, Abdullah Shah ate half and gave the other half to Tajuddin. The saint spoke as the young man chewed the biscuit. "Eat less, sleep less, speak less, and study the Quran as if the Prophet Muhammad had his very eyes on you."
Wow.
No sooner had Tajuddin eaten the biscuit than the guzzle of wine began singing in his heart, and his eyes shed of longing before the saint. And his eyes shed tears of longing before the saint. The young man disappeared from the school, and for 3 days remained in a blissful state of tears, longing to see his beloved. The saint had aroused the spiritual longing of Tajuddin's soul for knowledge of God, which is in a footnote back here. There is no biographical material available, let's see, about the Mohammedan Saint Abdullah Shah. Anyway, you want to pick it up here?
Does Mark want to go next?
Oh, whatever.
No, he asked you, Tamara.
This right here,
Yeah,
this.
don't try to get out of it.
Tajjudin,
Okay.
middle of the page.
Tamara.
I take one. I take
Tajuddin changed. He was no longer an avid student. He now preferred solitude. An interest in socializing with his friends waned. He had received an inner treasure, but had no idea what it was. Although he had become a loner and a stranger to his friends, the young man gradually came out of that state and appeared reasonably normal. Reasonably is the key word there. At this time he began reading the Divan of Hafiz with fervor. The words of Hafiz came alive, and the following couplet impressed him profoundly. Drink wine, set the Quran and the Kaaba afire. Go stay in the temple and don't bother anyone. Tajuddin was drinking divine wine. He was burning the Quran and the Kaaba in the flames of his heart. He had entered his own inner temple of solitude and was in a blissful state. Then in 1879, worldly circumstances led Tajuddin to meet his beloved. Black clouds came over the district. Heavy rains caused terrible flooding of the Kanhan River. Recruits were being sought by the army to meet the disaster. The town of Kamptee suffered severe damage. Many had drowned or lost their homes. To ease the financial situation of his distressed grandmother, Tajuddin enlisted in the army, although the young man was inwardly calling out to God and his heart was aroused to meet him. So he enlisted in the army.
Wow. So this guy was
get that?
something.
God, you listen.
It says here that he enlisted in the army, although the young man was inwardly calling out to God, and his heart was aroused to meet him. His heart had become a wine cup of song. Where are you, O beloved, come? Call me to you, or come yourself. Call me, or come. Beloved, God is, after all, always merciful. And hearing Tajuddin's wholehearted cry, he could not remain indifferent. The young man's enlistment in the army would eventually lead him to the one he sought, as his regiment was soon afterward transferred from Kamptee to Sagar. Sagar means ocean. Is that right, Sagar? Sagar?
Sagar, probably.
Sagar. Tajuddin was meant to go to Sagar to turn into an ocean. While the other soldiers were being trained to fight the enemy, Tajuddin was fighting within himself. For a soldier to conquer an enemy is simple in comparison to overcoming one's own limited self and gaining victory over the false ego. His was a secret war. How can one gauge the inner struggle of the young Tajuddin? He was his own soldier, trying to be courageous amidst a terrible inner battle. Tajuddin heaped ignominious defeat upon his inner enemies, and his heart was feverish with a victory cry, "Beloved, beloved, beloved." At last, one night when Tajuddin was on guard duty, someone called him. Startled, he looked around and then walked in the direction from which the voice came. He treaded beyond the barracks and entered the thick forest. Making his own path through the woods, eventually he found an old man seated under a tree. It was the Muslim Qutub. Is that right, Qutub?
Qutub.
Qutub?
Qutub.
Qutub.
Jai Baba.
Jai Baba.
Jai Baba!
Good. Good. Nice to see both of you, all of you.
Nice to see you too,
See
Kathy.
both of you too, Kathy.
Jai Baba. Jai Baba. Jai Baba. Jai Baba. Very nice to see all of you.
Fred, isn't it Q-tip?
Heidi came here.
Qutub.
My daughter was here.
Qutub. Qutub.
Q-tube, you say?
Qutub.
Heidi.
Qutub. Qutub. Qutub.
Huh?
Nice to
Actually,
see you.
Qutub.
Nice to see
know.
What
you.
happened to both of you?
I know, where have we
Muslim,
been?
you know.
I don't know. Where have we
Qutub. I've heard
been?
it pronounced Qutub. Qutub.
Whoever it is, you're telling.
Qutub?
Qutub.
Qutub? Qutub.
So we know what you mean. It was
Thank you, okay.
perfect master.
Yes, perfect answer. It was the Muslim Qutub, renowned in the district, Hazrat Dawood Christi. He was the real beloved who had filled Tajuddin's heart with restlessness. Without looking at Tajuddin, the old master ordered the youth to bring him a cup of hot tea. Walking out of the dark forest, Tajuddin went back to the barracks kitchen where he boiled a fresh cup of tea. Again finding his own pathway through the forest, Tajuddin brought the hot cup of tea unspilled. After sipping a little, Dawood Kisti gave the remaining portion to Tajuddin and told him to drink it. As soon as the young Tajuddin drank the tea, his inner restlessness instantly became ablaze and changed into an ocean of bliss. Tajuddin at that moment attained God realization. In his godhood, the world was no longer existent. It turned into zero. Everything vanished. Tajuddin lost all consciousness of his body in the outside world. Syed Baba. Hi. Good to see you.
Yes, Heidi. Kathy. Yes, Heidi.
Yeah, therefore I thought she came before me.
No.
I went to Pier 1.
Oh,
Anyway,
More important
who
than the
was
Baba
the
said.
master that gave him God realization? What was his name?
Hazrat Kishti.
Oh, that's right. Isn't that the one where you can visit? You can visit if you take a tour, or in India, they take you to Kisti's tomb. Is that him?
Oh, really?
You think so or not?
It must be.
I'm not sure, but
Yeah.
I remember a name that sounds similar to that.
You mean like in the Valley of the Saints? In the Valley of the
Yeah,
I know.
But
It was way too long.
The only thing is, it's Muslim though, so I don't know if it's the one, because, well,
No, he's Muslim. He's Muslim. Mostly Muslim
what I'm
saints.
saying,
Lots of change.
there is a
you have
Muslim.
a friend like her.
I know. That's right.
She is out of town, Heidi.
Baba is another son. Baba's chair.
No, she's calling for Rosalie.
Oh.
As soon as the young Tajuddin, I guess I already read that, drank the tea, his inner restlessness instantly became ablaze and changed into an ocean of bliss. Tajuddin at that moment attained God realization.
I'd like this to say that it seems like, passing the God realization, and also even with the cookie, his master takes half of it, and his master, drinks the tea first,
Yes.
and then gives him. So it's like, I guess he
passes it on.
He must convert something into that tea.
Wow.
Or I don't know if
The
it's
cookie.
I don't know if it's symbolic or if it's just probably. I bet you there's something in it. When Baba would
Symbolic.
make connect, Baba would touch the member.
Oh,
Yeah.
sure,
The
sure.
massage.
Of course, of course. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's great.
Blessing. Little blessing.
Yeah.
What is it? You know Muslim.
We do that, yeah.
You know Tajuddin Baba is Muslim.
Tajuddin Baba was Muslim.
How you pronounce?
Tajuddin.
Tajuddin?
Yeah.
Tajuddin. Okay.
Got it.
Tajuddin.
She laughs. I was asked to read the 100 Names
on
of
the
God
stage.
on the stage because Dr. RJ was late arriving at Bob's 100th birthday.
Yeah.
And I'm reading about the gar,
Gar.
and I hear the audience. She's hysterical because I'm butchering this language.
It's good for all. God.
I'm butchering it. I'm tearing it apart. And I says, I gotta finish this.
She didn't get mad. She just got the name. I said, what's like a script?
Anyway.
That's so funny. These names get me too. I'm like the worst.
You should have her come in.
That's right.
She did. It was she was like this.
Shirin.
Yeah, God.
She
God.
did,
Because
yeah.
she
Sure,
did like this.
too, no?
What's the story? Like this,
Butchering.
Oh, God. In his godhood, the world was no longer existent. It turned into zero. Everything vanished. Tajuddin lost all consciousness of his body in the outside world. He was experiencing Analha.
Anal-Haq. I am God.
I am God, the I am God state. He had only the consciousness of the divine I, and he had become God.
No.
In Sagar, is that right?
Yeah.
At the young age of 18, Tajuddin was transfigured into Sagar, an ocean. Do you want me to keep going? You want me to?
Well, sure.
One more page. The young Tajuddin had become a majzu.
Majzub. That's been
In love.
in love. Finish Majzub.
Oh.
A master.
One drowned in God.
Mm-hmm.
The youth ignored the army routine, and because he was behaving unusually, his fellow soldiers were convinced he had gone mad. But in truth, he was merged with infinite bliss, infinite power, and infinite knowledge. Every night, Tajuddin would wander through the woods to find Hazrat Kishti and sit with him for hours. Tajuddin's grandmother still cared about him and had arranged for his marriage to a Muslim girl, and because of the young man's peculiar state of mind, the family of the girl broke the engagement. I love it, his peculiar state of mind. That's a nice way of talking about God realization. Oh, God. Okay. The family of the girl broke off the engagement. Shortly after his night of realization, the officials found him unsuitable for military duty, so his grandmother had to go to Sagar and bring him back to Kamptee. In Kamptee or Kamptee, I'm not sure. Tajuddin's grandmother was also soon convinced he had gone mad. Seriously disturbed by his condition, the old woman sought every type of medical treatment for her grandson, but the treatments proved to have no effect, and Tajuddin's peculiar condition did not alter. Soon afterward, his grandmother died, and Tajuddin was left alone. No one knew how alone Tajuddin really was. It is virtually impossible to withdraw within oneself and be alone, severing all karmic attachments and ordinary associations. To be truly alone, as God himself is the aim of life, Tajuddin had achieved this goal. Despite his outward behavior, he was a man who had become God-conscious. Left alone in his grandmother's house, Tajuddin's relatives abandoned him, despising him as an incurable lunatic. For 4 years he lived thus, and the young man was prey to torture and anguish by the cruel townspeople. But Tajuddin's real agony was in regaining normal consciousness. Although living in desolation, Tajuddin was in the stage of Majubiya. Majubiya, okay.
Yeah.
And
like a gravity, you have a
Magnet.
like a magnet takes
magnet.
care of things.
Okay.
That is Majzub.
Okay. And a Mazub, though drowned in the infinite existence of God, is a master of all bliss. Suffering cannot affect a Mazub because he has no human consciousness. To be a, how do you say kutab?
What?
Kutab?
I don't know.
Kutab or kutab?
Kutab.
Kutab.
Okay, read it.
Kutab.
Yeah.
To be a kutab,
No, I was asking
Oh.
about
Q-U-T-U-B.
Kitab.
Kutab?
Kitab.
Kutab.
No,
Kutab.
it doesn't mean
Kutab,
that
a
would be
perfect master.
Perfect master.
No.
Kutub.
Kutub.
Kutub. A perfect master, such a God-realized person must come down from the God state and regain normal consciousness.
Say Cosby did.
I heard about that there.
I say Kutab.
I know. Kutab
Oh,
is known as.
Regain normal consciousness of first the mental, then the subtle and gross worlds. In this coming down there is nothing but suffering. This agony was Tajuddin's real suffering, not loneliness, not insanity. However, during these 4 years, Tajuddin appeared more raving mad. Alas, pitying his nephew's condition, his maternal uncle, Abdur Rahman, Rahman, took the young man of 22 to his home in Chanda. There too, Tajuddin was medically treated, but he failed to get better.
They tried everything.
Oh my God. Convinced his case was incurable, Uncle Abdur Rahman also abandoned his nephew to destitution and madness. Back in Kamptee, Tajuddin suffered terribly, both physically and mentally. He became a mockery, the village fool. Neither his uncle nor anyone else understood that he was suffering in order to regain his human consciousness, to come back into creation consciousness so that the suffering of humanity could be lessened. To escape the streets of Kamptee, Tajuddin spent most of his time then wandering the surrounding hills. Each time when he would re-enter the city, people took a deeper notice of him and gradually became aware that he was not mad in the ordinary sense. God, it took him long enough. Nevertheless, children would continually harass him. They would tease him and throw stones, but Tajuddin never stopped them. He would collect the stones that hit him so that they would not be thrown again. Being pelted with stones may have been instrumental in helping Tajuddin regain normal consciousness. You know, Baba did the stone with his head and everything.
No.
Probably through these mischievous children and their apparent tormenting, Hazrat Daoud Christi was bringing Tajuddin back to full creation consciousness, because soon after several severe stonings, Tajuddin started acting normal.
So but these kids, I wonder what connection these kids had with him then that hit him. They
Probably-
probably were
yeah.
blessed.
That was a
Well, they
blessing.
probably will be in the
Yeah.
circle next, whatever, or what, something
Exactly.
special, yeah.
Wow.
No one knew that Tajuddin had become a Qutb. Tajuddin was then 22 years old. Gradually, the young perfect master became highly regarded. Once, while he was strolling through the town, he suddenly entered the house of a weaver. Tajuddin forcibly told the man, "It is better if you gather your family and valuables and immediately escape this house." The man hesitated for a moment, but he was so impressed by the saintly personage of the intruder that he complied with the warning. Within a few moments after leaving, the house caught fire and burned to the ground.
Wow.
The man's family and possessions were thus saved. On another occasion, a man sought out Tajuddin and then pleaded, "Hazrat, come, my daughter is on the verge of death." The man had sought the best possible medical advice, but the girl's condition had not improved. Tajuddin closed his eyes and after a few moments smiled, saying, "Your daughter," hi, Syed Badruddin. Your daughter, we're reading about Tajuddin, one of the perfect masters. Tajuddin. Well,
Tajuddin.
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 Yeah.
I never heard it.
Yeah, Tajuddin Baba. Yeah.
Tajuddin
Wow.
Baba.
Okay.
Sounds good when she says it.
Yeah, I know, it sounds good. Your daughter is all right now. Go to her. The man returned home and was so amazed to find his little girl sitting up in bed eating dinner. When he asked his wife how she had recovered so quickly, his wife answered, "Just a few minutes before you arrived, a wandering beggar came to the door asking for alms, and I gave him some food. He inquired about our daughter, and I showed him into her room. He was with her for only a few moments, and when he left, he said, 'Do not worry any more. She will be all right.'" Later, when this family went to see Tajuddin, the wife, please, Baba, the wife declared that he was the same mendicant who had come to the house. Nearly 10 years passed while Tajuddin lived in the streets of Kamptee, often sleeping on a bridge near the railroad station. During the day or night he would roam the city. Though he appeared as a madman to strangers or as a fakir to others who knew him, Tajuddin was actually a perfect master at that time. Then, on August 26, 1892, the incident that caused Tajuddin to be incarcerated by the British authorities in the mental asylum occurred. Although there was an uproar of protest among the local people, especially the Mohammedans. However, because one of the British women at the tennis club had been so mentally disturbed by the sight of the naked man, the woman's husband had been outraged by this incident and, using his influence, had forced the authorities to incarcerate this Muslim. Tajuddin's trial received considerable attention, and during this time the judge became very drawn to him. Although Tajuddin was dressed in poor attire, the judge kept seeing him dressed like a king.
So in other words, the judge was having visions?
Visions, yeah.
Yeah. So I'm dressed like a
I don't know
king.
if the judge, maybe Tajuddin was showing himself that way.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, I
Yeah.
see.
It's the same thing.
I see. He was
Yeah.
like showing
He
it. The
could do
judge,
anything.
judge probably was
Yeah.
so impressed seeing this man. He probably didn't think anybody else thought differently.
Exactly.
But everyone saw the same thing.
Yeah.
Everybody-
So no wonder the judge was nice to him.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that's the great regal one. Wow, that's amazing.
Well, he
let's
also
see.
probably knew that he'd been told that the man's naked or comes like that.
Exactly.
But he was shown that way, so he knew who he was.
The reverse of the emperor in no clothes, you know.
Yeah.
You know, the reverse, I mean,
Yeah.
kind of like, this man was not a fool, but a king. Yeah. The judge became distressed by the court proceedings. Despite the hesitation of the judge, however, the British authorities compelled him to sentence Tajuddin to the asylum for the rest of his life.
Wow.
Tajuddin was 31 years old when he was taken in chains to the asylum a few miles outside the city of Nagpur.
Wow.
Today, this place is an official mental hospital, but then it was such a place that those inside were sentenced to life imprisonment, a place where once locked up, the keys were thrown away. It was a madhouse. There was little treatment for the inmates as we know it in today's institutions.
My God.
Dressed in a long green gown, Tajuddin would do manual labor along with the other inmates. But when those in the charge of this asylum got an inkling of his real stature, they tried to prevent him from doing this demeaning work, breaking stones and moving dirt. Tajuddin, however, refused to stop and insisted on continuing the tedious task done by the other inmates. Once Tajuddin was carrying an iron container full of earth on his head. The officials of the institution were amazed to see that the iron pot was not resting on his head, but was actually suspended some inches in the air. Tajuddin would move about nonchalantly while everyone saw this. From time to time, he would display occult power, and such incidents would occur, thus strengthening the inmates' and officials' faith in his spiritual stature. As the years went on, whenever Tajuddin wished to leave the asylum, the officials would later find that the locks on the gates had dropped off. To leave the asylum's ground was strictly forbidden, but how could they stop such a person?
Truly.
Tajuddin had a special tree under which he would meet people, but having no private room, he would sleep in a large dormitory with the other inmates who would feel at peace in his presence.
Wow.
One day, one of the lunatics escaped.
Maybe that was us.
So Babaji calls us lunatic.
I know, Abdul Majid Khan, the doctor in charge at the asylum, was terribly worried. But Tajuddin approached the doctor and told him, "Do not be anxious, he will come back tomorrow." The very next day, the fellow returned. On inquiry, he said, "I went to my home. But Tajuddin Baba met me there, and after giving me 2 hard slaps across my face, then ordered me back here immediately, so I came back."
Oh my God. Oh no, so he can manifest.
Yeah, so he could be near him.
He could be anywhere he wanted.
After this incident, Dr. Majid developed deep faith in and devotion for Tajuddin and would invite him to his home and would consult him about everything. Oh my God. Thus, the man in charge of the asylum became Tajuddin's devoted disciple. That's how you feel to perform in B of A, Fred, you know what I mean?
But you know what makes you think about too in life, though? It makes you think that any position you have in life, if you are in that state of oneness with God, all of life is magic, no matter where you are. The ego is what makes you feel that I'm one of stature in the world, and you are. But here he is in a prison with lunatics,
doing with them
an insane asylum, and he doesn't care where he is. In fact,
he goes
out, he comes back to the bay to sleep with his inmates, where he could have ran away, but he doesn't care.
And then through himself, he's transforming everyone. Through his devotion.
So what
a blessing for all these
for those
people.
Inmates.
Yeah, for the inmates and the people working there. And
my God, how many sanskaras were probably sucked up by him?
Well, if Baba works in microcosms, he was working in a microcosm, symbolically with those people.
Yeah, that judge, I'm sure that judge was never the same after that.
Like Mark had brought up the fact that Baba, maybe his work, Tajuddin's work, made Baba bring the must work out more. Like it was the first time musts were actually addressed, you said.
The mad,
Yeah.
Oh, you mean that maybe had a connection?
Well,
Asylum with
Baba
the mad?
takes something from each of his masters, you know.
That's right. There was a mad asylum, and he was there. The God-man, God realized being was there.
Makes sense to me.
Maybe they had a link.
Baba takes from. He says he has the attributes of each of his masters.
That's right.
That's right. That's right. Baba said each one of his 5 perfect masters, he took an attribute from them.
Right.
Wow.
But it just sounds like Baba's so loving to be doing all the same labor and being there, you know.
After we can hide the real. It's really doesn't go.
Oh yeah, that'd be great.
Park next door in the
It's okay.
That's why I'm like edgy.
They may tell you.
I know.
Why don't you park?
I gotta go grocery shopping. I gotta go.
Okay.
Don't see us.
And you gotta go.
Bye.
How do you get by?
Hey, Baba.
Yeah.
Hey, Baba.
She came to see Rosie.
Nice seeing you.
Bye.
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 I'll call you later, Mom.
Okay, bye.
Okay. Let's see. Okay, so we said, thus the man in charge of the asylum became Tajuddin's devoted disciple. Once Dr. Majid had a pressing appointment and asked Tajuddin if he could go to Bombay. Tajuddin refused to give him permission to go, saying the road is dangerous, but the doctor insisted. Reluctantly, Tajuddin granted him traveling permission, but giving him a leaf from a nearby tree said, "Carry this with you while you are away." The doctor left Nagpur by train and reached Bombay seemingly safe. But after the train stopped, he tried to take a shortcut across the railway tracks to the station itself of using the overbridge and tripped just as a train was pulling in. Miraculously, the train screeched to a halt just a few feet from his body, and everyone at the station was astonished at his escape. Thus he realized why Tajuddin had been so hesitant about allowing him to leave Nagpur. After several years in asylum, word of Tajuddin Baba began to spread like wildfire to distant corners of India, and people thronged to the asylum for his blessing. The spiritual atmosphere surrounding Tajuddin's presence was intoxicating. The madhouse suddenly turned into a wine shop where people could drink to their heart's content. A new madness was spreading. People became mad for God and for the company of Tajuddin Baba.
Look at that picture.
Yeah, I know.
Where's that?
Tajuddin Baba wearing an asylum gown, yet depicted with a halo of light, reflecting his holiness, is revered by the people of Nagpur. The atmosphere that surrounded Tajuddin was spiritual intoxication, and miracles were plentiful.
Where are you? Where are we?
We just start right here? Right here?
Excuse me. All right, let's focus it in here.
Can you read? You need glasses?
Here, listen.
Oh, no, I have my eyes closed for some time.
Okay.
Yeah, I can see it. Okay, day by day, the numbers increased, creating a problem for the asylum officials. At first, a separate gateway leading to the tree where Tajuddin would be seated was erected. Then the crowds became too large. So to dissuade and lessen the crowd, the government officials of Nagpur issued entry tickets to only a few, to only a fixed number, but the system failed. The fragrance of Tajuddin's wine spread throughout India, driving people mad to see him, a man who had become God conscious. The officials of the city and the asylum were at a loss as to how to handle the situation. Finally, the police directed the crowds. Tajuddin Baba was becoming the leading spiritual figure in the area. Among those who came for his darshan was a Muslim girl who had the same name as his mother, Mariambi. This girl came to Tajuddin with an inner thirst that would drink the wine shop dry. Mariambi came for the master's real darshan with the desire to lose everything at his feet. When Mariambi approached Tajuddin, he took her arm and broke her bangles with a stone. This external act freed her from all internal bindings and attachments in the world. The master then embraced her and she inwardly left this world. She became holy Tajuddin Baba's. Both Tajuddin and the girl's eyes were dazzling. I have been waiting for you, my dear, for the past 12 years, he told her. And at last you have come to me.
They always have a counterpart.
Yeah, the female counterpart.
Mariambi was then given realization. After this profound contact with Tajuddin, she visited him daily in the asylum. She was later destined to be always at his side when he was freed. In Mariambi's company, Tajuddin would always appear happy. He loved this girl especially. He poured the whole wine shop into her cup. She was among his chosen circle. It was under the instruction of the perfect master, Hazrat Dawood Christie, that Mariambi had gone to Tajuddin. Dawood Christie told her, "It is at Tajuddin's feet, not mine, that you should surrender everything." When she did, she was granted everything. Tajuddin possessed nothing material. The master was a perfect fakir. Once while he was in the asylum, a woman suffering intensely from the possession of a spirit was brought to him. Tajuddin eyed her, then spat in her face, shouting, "Why are you so bold and insolent with fakirs?" As soon as he uttered these words, the woman swooned and fell unconscious.
Wow.
When she regained consciousness, there was a glow of relief on her face. The ghost had been released by the master. A king who became devoted to Tajuddin was one of the Maharajs of the district named Raja Rakhuti Rao Baslam, who, at the slightest hint, was ready to dedicate everything he owned to Tajuddin. Though he was of royalty in Nagpur, he would often come to the asylum for Tajuddin's darshan. One day it dawned on the Raja that the crowds at the asylum were becoming intolerable, and he decided he must have Tajuddin freed from that place at any cost. It seemed Tajuddin had finished his work in the asylum and wished to change seats. This he hinted to the Raja. The Raja went to the authorities and begged them to free Tajuddin. At first the officials adamantly refused because the city was prospering from the revenue of many new visitors. Tajuddin Baba was Nagpur's greatest tourist attraction. In September, in September 1908, after posting a sizable bond of 2,000 rupees, the Raja brought Tajuddin to his palace, Shakidira, in the heart of Nagpur. The Raja gave Tajuddin his own private bungalow called Lal Koti, the Red House, a few hundred yards from the palace. Tajuddin was then 47 years old. After over 16 years in the mental asylum, Tajuddin was now residing comfortably in the palace of the king of Nagpur.
Wow.
But a fakir is, after all, always a fakir, one without any worldly things except the barest necessities. And Tajuddin did not retire to live the life of a king, but continued to look after the good of those who needed him spiritually. In his palace, the Raja kept one room separate where he would perform his daily prayers and worship ceremonies. When Tajuddin first moved into the Raja's compound, he would go to that room and defecate and urinate 3 times a day in front of a stone Hindu idol that the Raja prayed to. Anyway,
So he would urinate and defecate 3 times a day in front of this Hindu idol.
Wow.
Yeah, right. I was reading here. Anyway, this supposedly sacred room had become the bathroom of the master. But the Raja's faith in Tajuddin's perfection was so deep that he humbly cleaned it himself without taking it as an insult to his religious practices.
Wow.
That was unusual. Evolved.
That's right.
Very interesting. After staying in Nagpur at the Raja's Red House for some time, Tajuddin moved his headquarters to Baki, a suburb about 18 kilometers outside of Nagpur. There he lived at the home of a Hindu disciple named Kashinath Rao Patel. Rao Patel had a large estate and it was very suitable for Tajuddin's purposes because many people swarmed for the master's darshan daily. Swarming in such numbers that a township sprung up on the estate. Tajuddin officially named the town Chota Nagpur, meaning Little Nagpur. At Chota Nagpur, Tajuddin rearranged the estate's land into certain sections for his activities. A specific piece of land was kept vacant, which he named Baki Sharif, meaning the noble town. He then divided Baki Sharif into 5 main sections that surrounded his abode. Toward the west, a quarter of a mile away, Tajuddin had his dispensary. This strange dispensary consisted of no medical facilities or doctors. It was a solitary mango tree under which the sick and diseased were told by Tajuddin to stay. By remaining underneath that mango tree, Tajuddin's patients